I hate Zed, you hate Zed, we all hate Zed, okay? Even Zed players hate Zed when they aren't the ones playing him. To be fair though, if you're playing a tank that can eat up his whole combo and survive, or a bruiser that can burst him before he manages to land his abilities, then it's not so bad. But if you lock in any kind of a mobile squishy champ while Zed is on the enemy team, then you just gotta hope that God forgives you for all those times you put pineapple on pizza, cause you're doomed. You can try to stand in Africa to avoid the Zed, but he'll find a way to reach you anyway using his many gap closers. Then, after he ults onto you, you can try to flash his shurikens, but his undodgeable Prowler's Claw and auto attacks will probably be enough to kill you anyway. And if you're lucky enough to be playing a champ that can buy Zhonya's, after you use it, he can just return to his shadow, wait out his 2-minute cooldown and come for you again. All while being 0 and 8. He's got damage, he's got range, he has low cooldowns and insane mobility, he doesn't use mana, he's slippery and impossible to punish, or in other words, fuck this guy. The champ just feels impossible to beat. And as the great philosopher Socrates once famously said, if you leave Zed open, he will leave your cheeks open. So as a result of all of that, this motherfucker is sitting at a 50% ban rate across all ranks, which when you think about it, that's pretty damn high. In fact, I would argue that it's too high. Okay, hold on, hear me out. I can definitely understand why so many people hate playing against him, and I mean, as you can tell, so do I. But dealing with Zed is way easier than dealing with a lot of the other more annoying champs in League once you know what you're doing. So for his ban rate to be this high, something's gotta be wrong. People must just have no idea how to play against Zed, which is a problem because there are other champs that are way more deserving of your ban. And I'm gonna fix that problem, so if you're someone who bans Zed every game, by the end of this video you'll know so much about how to play against him that you'll be able to use your ban on some other beyond broken champ. And even if you don't ban Zed, I'm willing to bet that you still hate playing against him, so this video will help you anyway. This is pretty much gonna be a masterclass on how to deal with Zed. Zed has 4 characteristics that make him horrible to play against. His roaming power, his laning, how safe or slippery he is, and how much goddamn damage he does. Let's talk about how you deal with each of his strengths in no particular order, starting with roaming. A Zed roam consists of 2 stages. Stage 1 is him pushing out the wave, and stage 2 is him actually moving to where he wants to roam to. If you're laning against him, then your best chance to prevent any of his roams will be during the first stage. When a Zed starts shoving out the wave to look for a roam, most low elo and even a lot of higher elo players make the mistake of trying to match his push. So they'll see the Zed shove out the wave, then they'll shove out the wave themselves and either try to follow his roam or go jerk off at their tower and start pinging their bot lane or top lane to run the fuck away. If you're playing a champ like Talon or Kiana that actually can follow his roam and beat him in a 1v1, then it's fine to do that. But most champs can't beat Zed in a 1v1, so it's very likely that if you try to follow him, he'll just wait in one of the bushes and kill you as you walk through. So how do you stop him? Well, the moment he shoves the wave, just walk up and beat the living shit out of him. If he wants to clear the wave fast enough to roam, he'll have to use his entire combo, which means his W will be on cooldown and he'll be low on energy. So just walk up and start hitting him. You should be able to take a decent chunk of his health off, and it's going to be much harder for Zed to roam if he's on 40% health as opposed to being at full. And if you aren't in lane to punish him when he pushes, that probably means you messed up one of your earlier base timers. A common problem I see is where people will stay in lane for an extra plate or an extra wave, which then means they come back to lane later than they should have, and the enemy will get a free push out on the wave. So try your hardest to avoid overstaying in lane against Zed as much as possible, because giving him one roam timer will be all it takes to lose an entire game. But let's just say for whatever reason you fail to poke him, or you poke him a bit and he roams anyway, or you aren't even the one laning against him. What do you do now? Well, it's pretty simple to be honest. It just comes down to good warding and pinging if you're the one laning against him, and actually listening to pings if you're one of the side laners. Right now, you're probably thinking something along the lines of teammates that listen to pings, XD. And yeah, I know, it's a rare sight, but it doesn't really help that when you see the Zed roaming, you just go... Like, if I'm against Zed and that guy disappears off the map for 1 nanosecond, I'm immediately just going... So after this video, all you mid laners better be doing the same. And side laners, if I ping like this and you die anyway, and then later on in the game I hear you crying about how the enemy Zed has 11 kills and one-shots you with an auto attack, I'm leaving the game on the spot, don't even test me. I'm joking by the way, please don't do that. I do not under any circumstances condone leaving games. Right, please sponsor me. But yeah, my point is, if mid laners started pinging more and side laners started actually listening to them more, then there will be way fewer Zeds with full build at 15 minutes running around. Another thing that can help with dealing with Zed's roams is wards. They're kind of an underground concept in League. I don't think many people know about them, but basically slap a yellow one here so you can see where the Zed is roaming to, slap a control ward here or here so you can see him easily before he gets to the lane he's roaming to, and lastly, you can put a ward here or here, which will be useful if you're playing bot or top and you have one to spare. So remember earlier how I said you need to trade with him whenever he tries to push? Well, if you die early in lane and he's just so fed that he can kill you even after wasting his W on the wave, then you won't be able to do that. Then the Zed will be able to roam freely for the entire game, and we don't want that, right? So let's talk about laning against him next. If you don't play mid, you can skip to the timestamp on screen for the next section, or you could just listen anyway because the background music is kind of a vibe, and I know you got nothing better to do, man. You might as well, come on. Alright, so we all know Zed is weak at level 1 and 2, but how do you punish that? Well, it all comes down to standing in the right position. If you didn't know, Zed shurikens do less damage to you if they travel through a minion first before they hit you. So when none of your minions are on low HP, you should stand behind them to avoid taking the full damage from his Q if it lands. However, if one of your minions is low, you should stand away from it and position aggressively. Your goal is to force him to make a choice. Is he going to Q the minion, or is he going to Q you and give up the last hit? And then whichever one he chooses, you need to retaliate and hit him back with some autos and an ability as long as your champ allows it. Once he hits level 3, you need to start being more wary of his W. Thankfully, it's a really linear spell and has a crazy long cooldown, so it's super easy to play around once you know what to do. The most important thing is to not enter his range unless you're walking up to last hit. You last hitting is the only chance he should ever get to land a W combo on you, so the best thing to do is to stand far away until you need to get a minion, then walk up, pretend to go for the minion to bait his W out, then after he misses it, you can do what you want for 20 seconds because that's how long the cooldown is. It's pretty much just a mind game. Whoever has the better read on the other player will win in the long run, but most Zed players will fall for this bait every time, so you shouldn't need to worry too much. If he does manage to catch you with his WE, then focus on dodging the shuriken coming from the actual Zed instead of the one coming from the shadow. Most of his damage comes from electrocute, so as long as you're able to dodge one of his 3 abilities, you should honestly be chilling. Finally, never under any circumstance let him hit level 3 first. You hit level 3 after killing the second melee minion on the 3rd wave, which is the first cannon wave, so keep that in mind. If he hit level 3 first, you messed up somehow. We interrupt this program to bring you Crazy Zed Outplay. The one thing that I hear people complain about the most when it comes to Zed is the ridiculous amount of damage he does. Getting one-shot by a Zed with just an E and 2 auto attacks is an awful experience, because as a squishy champ with no self-peel, it feels like there's just nothing you can do about it. The reason it feels like that is because a lot of the time, that's just how it is. If the enemy Zed really is fed enough to kill you without landing anything, then there literally is nothing you yourself can do. You just need to pray that your team protects you, and if they don't because you're playing in low elo and you got unlucky with teammates, then you just need to take the L. It is what it is.
It is what it is. It is what it is.
But if the Zed isn't turbo fed, which he shouldn't be most of the time, there actually are a few things you can do. And I can already see the comments crying about how every Zed they see gets insanely fed. Like, no, okay, they don't. It feels like that because you only remember the ones that get fed and you forget all the ones that ain't. So if you comment that, I'm gonna slap you silly, and you do not want to experience that, trust me. The first thing you can do as a squishy champ to help you deal with Zed's damage is force him to use his W to reach you. A very large portion of Zed's damage comes from his W, to the point where a lot of the time when he isn't extremely fed, it's difficult for him to burst a full health target without it, even if he uses his ult. If you want to force him to use it, all you need to do is position far away from him when you see him, and be extremely careful of flanks when you don't see him. This means placing yellow or blue wards in your jungle entrances whenever you can, and standing as far away as possible from areas where you have no vision. If you're playing in a mobile squishy champ, then when the mid game and late game come, you should constantly be looking at the map and assessing your own vision. That way you can be certain that you'll always be standing near the areas of the map that you have warded. So if he flanks, you'll see it coming. As long as you follow this advice, then Zed should only be able to ult you by using his W to close the distance, in which case you'll survive most of the time. If you don't survive, then chances are the Zed is just too fed for you to do anything about it in that game, and as we said earlier,
It is what it is.
Just take the L and move on with your life. One tip I can give is that if he does ult onto you, don't try and attack him. Just focus on moving around to dodge his Qs. You should only start hitting him once he misses his Qs or if he gets CC'd. The other way to deal with him is by buying Zhonya's or shield bow, but most people know this already. You can also buy a stopwatch before a big fight if you're an ADC, and run the stopwatch rune if you're a mage. Lastly, let's talk about Zed's safety. How hard Zed is to punish is probably the most bullshit thing about him, but all I can really do for this section is give a couple of tips to help you deal with the problem a bit, so here we go. 1. His E reduces the cooldown of his spells, so if you can space away from him to avoid it, his W will be up less often. 2. When he ults, he always appears directly behind you from where he ulted, so if you have any CC, you can guarantee that you hit it by waiting for him to ult. 3. His W is on a 20-second cooldown and he maxes it last, so play aggressive for as long as possible when he doesn't have it up. 4. If he lands spells with his shadows, it restores energy, so if you can dodge any of them, it will take longer for him to regenerate his resources, which gives you more time to play aggressive. 5. Consciously pay attention to where his shadows are in fights, rather than leaving them in your peripheral vision just to end up confused when he disappears like Houdini. If you watch them more closely, you can be ready to punish him when he goes back to them. Zed has a lot of things. He has damage, he has range, he has low cooldowns and insane mobility, he doesn't use mana, and he's also slippery and you can never punish him, so he just feels impossible to beat. But he's not. He has weaknesses just like every other champ in League, and once you know what they are, he really isn't that hard to deal with. Which is a sentiment I hope you can agree with after watching this video, so that next time you leave Zed open, your cheeks can stay nicely shut. Thanks for watching lads, in a bit.